continuing on, right? So
I know, I know. Well, thanks so much, Rory, for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. I think where we can, I mean, first things, if you can just introduce yourself and explain to folks, just in case if people have been living under a rock and they don't know Mellis, if you can sort of explain all that.
yeah, sure, no worries. So we are a small family business based in Edinburgh, really. We currently have 5 retail sites throughout Scotland, and we also work a lot with restaurants, bakeries, and other shops, kind of within the UK, essentially. We work with small scale producers from artisan cheese all the way through to spiced pickles and chutney. And we've been going just over 30 years now, so I think, 32 years more or less now. So it's still a family company. There's 4 members of my family, and 4 of us are involved within the business. We currently employ roughly between kind of 45 and 50 employees throughout our sites. And yeah, we're kind of still dedicated. We give quite an old school service, so it's a familiar business for most, which maybe seems a lot older, but yeah, we're still quite a youthful company, and now in our second generation. So
No, that's amazing. I mean, it's funny because I remember when the Victoria Street shop opened. Was it 94 or 97? About then?
we're 93.
93. And my granny, who lived in Edinburgh, she took me there when it first opened. And so it's funny how things sort of just feel like almost so familiar just as you're growing up. Um, can you dive into let's start with the upbringing and growing up. And you went to university in Edinburgh and Madrid, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we that my parents have always been quite a strong influence on and growing up a massive inspiration for work ethic as well. So we did. I started off my career within the shops after school. I don't actually remember the exact age, because from a young age we got traipsed around the shops in the car, and kind of hung about a lot of the places just whilst mum and dad were doing work. But after school, when I moved into the senior school, I did a lot of after school shifts within Stockbridge and Victoria Street as well, just to kind of, I suppose, pay my way a little bit and also just learn. I went to university just after I left school, just to study Spanish and business, and went away to Madrid kind of in the third year. I think it's Erasmus. I don't know if they still do that now, but went away to Madrid, and kind of fell in love with a cheese shop there, obviously. So I ended up doing a lot of journeys to them, a lot of speaking with them, and then I think after kind of 6 or 7 months of dipping my toe within Spanish university, I asked them for a job. I think they said no at the time, which I still hold to them, so we're still pretty good friends. And then after that, I kind of came back, so I must have been about, I want to say, kind of like just going on 20 maybe. So I was doing bits and bobs for my parents out in Spain, kind of recreating the website, kind of trying to pull some sales into the e-com side of things just from afar. And I think I got £10 a week to do the social media as well. So did that from afar. And then when I came back, I came very much back into a sales role. So at the time we weren't working with a lot of restaurants or trade customers. So my big focus was to put a lot of my energy into sales, essentially. So that was that must have been about 3 or 4, looking at the calendar now, 3 or 4 years of just sales driving. And then, obviously COVID happened, and the kind of retail then started taking front. So my career path started in sales, but it's taken a few bumps through some sort of natural causes, and my roles changed quite a bit. But yeah, that's the basis of us growing up essentially. But yeah, lots of farm visits when we were younger, lots of trips. Yeah, just as much as I can remember, the family holiday was like intertwined with some form of cheese visit. So
It's funny because we always holidayed in sort of the south of France, and sort of we sometimes feel like Mellis today is still like an extension of a holiday. Like it still brings that sort of feeling. How important do you think was Madrid in terms of you maybe? I mean, maybe you were always part of Mellis and you always wanted to do that, but how important was sort of being in Madrid, sort of hankering after the cheese shops and sort of there?
yeah, I think it's hugely important. I think like for any kind of like person that's involved within a family business, like it's always important to take a step out for sure, and gain your own understanding of what you think is a good shop and what you think is a good product, and really like figure out if it's actually what you want to do. So that was really important for me to kind of go away and try and think about what I really wanted to do. But also like the way that my dad kind of, you mentioned kind of France. I mean, he's holidayed in France pretty much every year, and we were, and a large part of that influence is kind of brought into the shops within like small scale cheeses, the way that it's set up, the way that the kind of influence from the markets of in France have influenced our cheese benches. And I think Spain was exactly the same. It was much more kind of like cosmopolitan within Madrid. There was a lot more kind of uniformity and a lot more kind of, it was more business, I would say.
Sure.
And the shops there are a lot more better laid out. But it was really important for me to kind of to see that cosmopolitan city and like miss Mellis a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but then also like we really didn't deal with a lot of small scale Spanish cheesemakers beforehand, and when I went there, I couldn't believe like the same setup in Spain. It has the same setup in Spain that it does kind of like within France and within small scale kind of European British cheeses. So getting an understanding for like how much variety of products that we were missing out on was pretty eye opening. And now we exclusively only work with that cheese shop in Spain.
That's amazing,
Both,
isn't it?
yeah, both selling. We sell Scottish cheese and English cheese and Irish cheese to them, and we source it all from small scale producers, and they reciprocate and do exactly the same thing with Spanish cheeses. So we've got a much broader understanding of just how good Spain is. So yeah, it was a huge influence, and I go back twice a year to visit them, and they're coming over in a couple of weeks' time to visit Scottish cheesemakers. So it really connects us well. I made a lot of great friends there in the industry. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean
great.
that's fantastic. I mean, was it sort of 2021 you sort of became director? Is that about right?
Sounds about right.
Sounds
Yes,
about
yeah,
right.
it must have
Yeah.
been. I think it was just, yeah, maybe just after COVID started. So, yeah, kind of a baptism of fire, like straight
I mean,
into the.
So was it about that time that sort of you started to think about the branding and the packaging? Because that sort of obviously looked a
Yeah,
lot more.
massively. I mean, if my dad is, anyone who knows my dad knows how much of a design head that man has on him. I mean, the shops are not kind of curated through kind of accidental or putting or like mismatch, or like they're really thought through, if down to what color tiles we're putting onto the floor, to what the how the cheese is displayed, how accessible it is, like, but still retaining that like warmth of old school and traditional service. So dad's branding head alongside my brother is really strong. I think they've there's definitely a clear line. Like, my brother is definitely my dad's son, and I suppose a lot of that's rubbed off on myself and my mum as well. But the branding's so important. So yeah, we started thinking about it in 2021, and we were kind of doing it in house. It was a bit mismatchy, if I'm honest. I learned quite a lot, but I think it was 2023 now. I think kind of 2023. I got in touch with this guy called Kenny, and he did Dad's branding in the '90s.
Uh-huh.
So it was loads of oranges, loads of darks, loads of kind of earthy kind of tones, like sans serif fonts, and handwritten signs. Like, it was really important, and we moved away from him. I think he was Dad's oldest pal up in Inverness, and we just never really connected, and we never kind of thought, look, let's put some money into the budget, into the branding. So
Yeah.
we kind of made the decision at 23, and Dad's always wanted to move away from having his name in the shop. So
Really?
it was
Interesting.
IJ. I think IJ for Ian
Yeah.
James, uh,
Not
and
funny
he's
because
all
you always, yeah, sorry, I just need to say, like, you always think that when you're so much behind it, you sort of quite proudly just have your name. But then maybe as time goes on, you realize how much more of a sort of family, I suppose, family
yeah,
brand it sort of ought to be, you know?
definitely, yeah. I mean, he's it was a call that, like, I think eventually we were going to make, but we just didn't have the right person behind us to kind of like understand where Dad was coming from, because a lot of
Uh-huh.
people are pretty cautious about going, why would you drop the IJ? And the move to Mellis is runs along the same path as what J.R. Sainsbury's did. You know, John Sainsbury started off as J.R. Sainsbury's, his first shop
Yeah.
as a butter merchant. He then moved to J. Sainsbury's after he had a load of sons and gave every one of his sons a shop. And then the progression of Sainsbury's through the kind of like wartime and then into the 60s, he ended up dropping the J and it becoming Sainsbury's. And I think we kind of went down the same route. And we've asked loads of people of, you know, what do you refer us to? Do you refer us to kind of IJ Mellis? Do you refer to us as Ian Mellis? And the resounding amount of people still refer us as Mellis's. And I think,
100%, yeah.
yeah, and and it was done it was done with a lot of thought. You know, we never thought, okay, well, we'll just change it tomorrow. But the shops still, like, the shop frontages, some of them say IJ Mellis and Son, some of them say IJ Mellis and Sons, some of them still say IJ Mellis. Like, we don't put a huge emphasis on the shops being like, if we change our brand, then we need to change all of our frontage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when I first saw it, I just thought, you know what? It just oozes like it was just so right. And it looks beautiful. But what I really liked was you didn't make some song and dance on social media like all this new branding. You just started posting,
Yeah.
and I just think that was, you know, so many people sort of make the whole branding reveal such a big entity, and it was just nice that it was just sort of carrying on just
Yeah.
effortlessly, you know?
Yeah, I think we're if yeah we're quite like that as a family anyway. Like,
Uh-huh,
we just do we do not song and dance anything. Like, we barely do any form of interviews, any podcasts.
uh-huh.
We really Dad did a lot of articles back in the day, but you know, we it's not and also, like, we're very aware that, like, changing over to Mellis, it looks a lot more professional. We have brand colours we're working with. It's given us a much better framework to work with for myself,
Yeah.
because a lot of it's done internally. Like, all the socials still done by myself, all the website, everything, and with our team as well. Like, I've got a great team downstairs who do the website with me, and we have a lot of discussions about it as well. Um, but we were very aware that, like, we're still a family business. We're entering the second generation. I never wanted it to be. We didn't want it to be like, oh, they've been bought over. You know, we changed the website, we changed the socials. Everything looked a bit tighter, and we're slowly filtering through all of our private label products to basically make it the same. But I was very aware that we didn't want to rebrand with the thought of
Yeah.
people going, oh, they're not the same family anymore. Like, we still are, and
Yeah.
that was always a worry.
But that totally comes across, Rory. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, you know, I think when some companies do rebrand or just slightly come away from things, it feels disjointed from where they were. But I just feel like this is a continuation for you.
Yeah, 100%. Your customers are like our customers are the most important people to, like, we love the brand, we're behind the brand, but if the customers are not behind the brand is the family, you know. And I think that's why Dad wanted to move away from the IJ. The brand's not Dad, you know. Dad's always said that it's there's a really important part of it, the fact that we're a family company, but it's not the part of it. You know, we connect small scale cheesemakers and our customers together, and Mellis is the brand in the middle that basically facilitates that connection. But it's not Dad behind the counter. We've got fantastic cheesemongers and fantastic staff that are selling the products. It's not Dad. And I think that's why he kind of wanted to take that away a little bit and go, we're much like we're much, it's bigger than Dad,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. And I suppose
Um, yeah,
it's like everyone under one umbrella, as it were. Like, you know, it's all of you.
definitely. Yeah, I think it's good, and it's still clean enough, essentially, that it's not. Yeah, it's still clean enough that it retains some farmhouse imagery to it, and you can still picture that. And we use that within the products and within our like. Even the way that the photos are taking, it's all done on natural wood, and like nothing's really edited that much. So I think, yeah, all of that speaks for the brand, and it's nice to kind of have those clean guidelines. I've never worked off guidelines before, and like
It does make a
when
difference.
oh my god, it makes a huge difference. It's amazing, like the amount of obviously internal branding for most. It's a luxury that we have to be able to work with Kenya again, and I'm really
Yeah.
like I'm super proud to be doing that with him. But I feel like I'm learning so much from him, and he completely gets the voice of what we're going for. But every meeting that I have with him, I feel like I learn a slightly different thing. And I think people think branding is one of these things that's like anyone can do it, and it's not really. There's so many different things down
It's
to the
uh,
spacing between letters and
yeah.
oh yeah, he pulled our brand apart, and I loved it. Like it was so
Yeah.
good to see. But yeah, it was
No, that's
amazing.
amazing. And that's really nice how you've carried on almost the history of Mellis by working with, is
Oh,
it,
totally.
yeah,
It's Kenny. Yeah, totally.
you know, that your dad worked with, you know, and I think that's sort of part of the story as well, you know?
Definitely. I mean, he's Kenny's been like of the era that essentially doesn't that's worked with tactile pieces. He presented everything in a massive like A2 folder,
I love the
and
fact
he
that he's still doing portfolios, you know?
oh, I've got it next door, and it's sitting on the meeting table for everyone to look at when he was
Uh-huh.
presenting what we were going to change it to. And it was we were physically flicking through everything, we were touching the paper. Um, nowadays, like it would be done on PDF, it might be done over Zoom. He was really, really for like our brand is so tactile,
Yeah.
so the quality goes into the product. It goes into the paper that we use. It goes into like the cheese. It's all about the product, and the brand is actually like very small part of that. But he's the last kind of person that would probably still be doing that, and he's not. He's not young anymore, so I don't. He doesn't have any new clients. He doesn't. He doesn't actively source any. So when we were saying that this is probably going to be the change, we're not change the branding in 30 years. This branding now needs to last another 50 years, in my
Yeah,
opinion. So
absolutely.
he was definitely the right person for it because he just knew the voice and he knew our family. So it's like
And I
it's
think that makes
perfect.
I mean, that makes such a difference when you're sort of ingrained into knowing the family as opposed to just employing somebody else because they might be good at branding. You know,
Yeah,
I think to get the actual essence of the family ties is hella important.
yeah, it's hugely important. It's much more important than we've got so many products and like I suppose you never really know with a rebrand. Like you don't know what your logo's on until you have to then change it, and then
Yeah,
you start seeing your logo on doors and computer screens and in the little circle in Outlook, and like it's
yeah,
just when we listed out what we needed to change. I mean, it's monumental. So for companies and I like you kind of go back to the way that you said that you were seamlessly doing it. We can't afford to like completely literally bin material with our old logo on it, and
Uh-huh.
shop frontages cost an absolute dime to
Of
redo and
course.
stuff. So it's phasing it slowly, and I think that really helps with the customer migration. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
starts becoming familiar, like you said, without really feeling like it's changed. So
Yeah,
um,
and it's funny because with the website, it feels it doesn't just feel fresh, but it feels like you can almost feel the Mellis products. Like it's been done so beautifully as well.
thank you. Yeah, I think the larger photos really help. We were
Oh,
really.
I mean, it's a real storytelling masterclass on the website because there's so many websites out there, Rory, that just you know, I
Mhm.
mean, it's absolutely stunning. So kudos to all of you there.
Yeah, it was a big one. We kind of did it just before Christmas, and it was like we usually launch Christmas maybe a week before we should have this year, and it was just because we were all running up to just trying to get it to work. It was a brand new website, so it's probably not the best of time. But again, like we started that in January, so it's not like a again, these projects take that website took 9 months, and it was just constantly back and forth. Oh, I don't like
Yeah.
this, or this function doesn't work, or this email doesn't get sent. But again, like the focus of it was to simplify it completely, and then put the products at the forefront of what people are purchasing, and make it easy for people to see what they're purchasing. So, as e-com is a minefield, like, and to really do it well, you really need to put a lot of time and investment. And these companies that do big e-com and clothing stores and that, the money that they plow into it is just obscene. Like,
Oh,
but again, like
absolutely.
we get the guidelines, and then we rely on basically like our team and myself to try and figure out how we can do this without spending a crazy amount of money. So that's what takes the time. And the
Well,
photos were amazing as well, done by a guy, one of my friends. So it's yeah, it's all about kind of keeping everything quite tight.
and you can tell, and your online and social media presence is so great as well, and it does feel like it's aesthetically on purpose, and it's almost like mirroring the interiors of your shops. Um, can you talk a bit about like I know you sort of said your dad was such a design head, but when you're acquiring these shops, how's the thought process in terms of getting it to how it's looking? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, much and such the same as is how we kind of approach most things. Like we look at the shop in terms of well, I mean, I can only I like the last shop that was opened was 2012, I think, and that was Aberdeen. And I think I was maybe 12 at the time, 15 at the time. I can't remember exactly, but we that was the last shop that was opened, and I played no part in that whatsoever. So like I can only comment on the new shop that we have, and then also kind of how we work on a daily basis. But the shops are usually either ex butchers or ex fishmongers, really. The bare bones are basically the most important part of the shop, and I think that's really important. We don't go into boxed shops. We don't go into estate agents. We don't go into. It's not about the area that we go into. It's about what's in the area, and then what complements or what's missing. But then the shop is also it needs to have history behind it. So, for example, the Stockbridge shop, I think, was an ex-fishmonger butcher. Sorry, it was an ex-butcher. Morningside was an ex-fishmonger. Victoria Street wasn't anything like that, but it has to have history. And then when we walk in, essentially, it's about stripping it back. So stripping it back to its absolute bare bones and seeing what's there. I think we treat it more like a restoration project than we would a shop front. And I think Dad's always been really keen about restoring the shop back to its original form. Not even if it's down to the panes of glass, like don't replace the panes of glass, keep the panes of glass. And then the shop's then got a huge counter in it, and then the display front is the cheese and the product. So we've always been stripping it right back, and then we allow our cheese to kind of do the display a little bit. I think that's always how we've worked. But it's all about preservation and all about kind of restoration, essentially. So taking it all the way back to its original form. Being an ex-fishmonger and butchers really help as well, because they never really touch their tiles. They're all kind of set up for kind of squishing water about the place. So like it makes a perfect environment for us.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, that's probably the way that we look at it is strip it back, see what we're left with. We might be left with a gold gem, we might be left with absolute rubbish, but we'll make the most of it. Essentially, it's like trying to take it. If we strip it back and the walls are completely ruined and they're not original, then we'll look at the period and then put tiles that would reflect that period anyway, and then we'll start the restoration process. So hopefully in 50, 60, 100 years time, people look back and go, oh, they must have done this in the 90s or whatever. But yeah, it's like the shop frontage tells a story, and so does the whole of the street. So it's like trying to take that story back, basically.
No, absolutely. And that's a perfect segue, because we all know that businesses and how important brand creativity and storytelling is. Like we see it executed on a daily basis. Can you talk how paramount it is, particularly around customers and community and your artisan cheesemakers, sort of to tell the story all around that?
Yeah, it's yeah. I think I mentioned it before. I think we facilitate the link between the two. So artisan cheesemakers dates right the way back, and especially within Scotland, it's had a bit of a revival kind of in the 90s, especially when Dad started. And I think they all have their own basically journeys. They have their own stories, and they put a lot of graft into what they do. A huge amount of graft from kind of farming all the way through. So the start process is not actually pretty. It's a pretty brutal job. It's a lot of early starts, and it's a lot of graft. So the storytelling is essentially trying to make the cheese the focus of our shop display. Like I said, I think they need to be able to see it, they need to be able to taste it, they need to be able to touch it, they need to be able to see if it's got blue mold in it. And I think that's why we've always done cut pieces. It's why we've never gone to vacuum pack like small pieces, and it's why we still retain that over the service counter, over the counter service. So tasting's a massive part of that journey. When the customer walks into the shop, one, they need to be able to see everything, and they need to be able to see the cheese, and they need to be able to see the products, and they need to be able to see the blue mold in it if it has got blue mold in it, because it sometimes happens. But secondly, they need to be able to taste it. It's the customer. The customer needs to buy that cheese. We're not there to describe. So with the journey, we just need to make sure that our products are clearly displayed, and that people get tasters of those products. And that helps tell the story, and we really don't need to tell that much story. It's quite good. We can let people's taste buds basically decide whether they want that or not, and that's a huge advantage to us. And I think that helps tell a story much more than we could put on billboards or above fridge displays and on labels saying this is who they are. And that's why our labels are not depth in description. When you get the bit of cheese, it's very much, you've already tasted the cheese that you've brought home, so by default, like, you just need to know who's made that and where is it made. You don't really need to know anything else. So I think the cheese does a huge part of telling the story for us. And again, we're there to basically make sure that the customer gets that taster and is happy with the piece that they've chosen.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like as soon as you enter the shops, the story already starts. As soon as you
Mhm.
enter, as soon as you
Yeah,
see it, it's like husbands and wives or children waiting outside at the benches, or like it must feel like you almost like get this recognizable thing of repeat customers, and you recognize people's faces.
oh,
How
huge.
how does that feel as like a family business? Like that must feel really lovely, actually.
Yeah, it's really it is, and like even going in, if I do go into the shops and see, it was in Stockbridge yesterday, and as a regular that I've been working with within a restaurant, but also as I've been serving since I was doing part-time shifts in there, and they don't forget you, and you don't forget them. And I had a good conversation with him about going golfing, I think, over the weekend, and this, that, and the other. But even just like being on the shop floor, and I was doing something, even the manager in Stockbridge was having conversations with at least 4 or 5 customers through the door that she obviously has a seat on every second day. I think it really helps because you feel like you're part of the customer's day, and I think that they feel that they're part of yours as
Yeah,
well. So
absolutely.
it really, and we're not got thousands of people coming through the door every day. It's hundreds. It's not like they're recognizable faces, and you're part of their life. Like if they're having a bad day or a good day, and like they'll tell you as well. And I think that helps build up a really strong relationship and trust. But we have so many regulars, and I think that if we like our regulars are the most important people, like because they keep us afloat. Um, Tourism is fantastic. Like if you've got that shop and that location, but you still always rely on regulars, and it's always worrying if you don't see a regular. I think we've always been, I've always thought and always been taught that it is the regulars that keep our business alive, essentially. So it's important to be part of their day and listen to what they're doing. And that's that. I think if as long as we're able to make them feel like this is their home as well, then that's the kind of goal, really. Like, I want them to feel like they're walking into their fridge. And the chefs and companies that we work with around, like, I'm based in the warehouse at the moment, where we do a lot of our trade, and we do a lot of our kind of business to business in the warehouse. But the accounts are also set up within the shops, so you'll get chefs coming off of their break basically and getting asked to go and pick up the cheese from the shop, and it'll be the same commie chef that comes in, or the same business owner that comes into the shops, and that personality then helps the customers because you've got chefs and chef whites that immediately sings kind of high quality, and then their relationship with the staff is also really strong because they're both working in similar hospitality environments, and the retail customer gets to be part of that. So it's not like this behind the screen Mellis supplies businesses and nobody knows about it. It's like it's very open, and the chefs are openly like being able to go into the shop and pick up a slice of cheese for that service. It's going to be. They also get a taste. Like it's not going to be inferior quality. Is in fact we try and encourage as many businesses that we work with around our shops. The best way to actually pick up your cheese for the service is go into the shop, because it'll be bang on right for the evening, and then we get some customers that are coming in 2-3 times a day, you know, and so that's an amazing thing, and especially and then that translates into when people go to their restaurant and the server can say, look, I pop in 3 times a day to get cheese, and they know it's fresh. So I think it's really important. But yeah, it's all these personalities that come into the shop that make the shop. It's
No,
our staff members,
absolutely.
the public, the tourists, the regulars, and the chefs. And at times it can be like a really quite fun place to be, with lots of kind of different atmospheres going. And because they're so small, like they're small, they're not supermarkets. So when there's like a mixture of 4 different personalities in that shop, like I don't know, but it's quite it's like a nice chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also feels like, I mean, we've shopped at Mellis since the get go, it feels like, and, it's, I think where people love it is obviously the quality, because you mentioned supermarkets there, and I think the customers that you have, I think it's a test of time that actually people would actually pay more for better quality and well sourced.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the supermarkets I mention all the time to my staff because they're our biggest competitor in my eyes. You know, they're at the moment, like I think the kind of higher end supermarkets have like dabbled kind of in the last 20 years. I've got plenty of friends that are that work within the supermarkets on artisan cheese, and I know a few people that do the buying in that for these supermarkets. The supermarkets have cottoned onto that as well. You know, like the quality of produce within supermarkets has definitely increased. I mean, as far as I'm aware,
Uh-huh.
in my short lifespan, like I can see the supermarkets putting a better emphasis on like quality products. So they get thousands of people through the door. So what can we do different? That's different to the supermarkets, and it's service and taste. So they are our biggest competitor in terms of volume, but we're basically trying to compete in terms of making sure that people get an experience when they leave and that they're happy with their purchase, not that they haven't tasted. And that's why tasting is just, I keep talking about tasting, but it's the only way that we can be different, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think with shopping at Mellis, I feel that you're much more closer to the cheesemakers. Like there's this sort of closeness that you feel in terms of it's coming direct,
Yeah.
as opposed to in a supermarket. Although they might be in collaboration with them, it's just like it doesn't feel as close knit. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, yeah, they've again, when I go, the packaging and branding is really important of a product. And yeah, I think nowadays when you see that much script on products, like for me, a good brand is it shouldn't say much. You know, it should be. I really like blank space, a huge amount of blank space, a negative space,
Yeah.
and then you let either the piece of paper do the talking with the texture and quality of it, and then the brand isn't very small. But yeah, it's too much writing on a product doesn't help it sell. It kind of makes you wonder why is there so much writing? What's it covering and what's it hiding? So
And why
yeah,
does
I
it have
think
to explain so much? You know, it's that constant
yeah,
wording. You know, just let it tell its own story.
massively, yeah, definitely. And the use of the words artisan and the farmhouse, you know, that kind of gets plastered over a lot of products that are definitely not. And I think if you have to explain your product too much, then I don't think it's it's that great. Like you've got to have a bold brand, and then you've initially to get people to buy it, and then you've got to rely on the flavor, quality, and taste to get them back. You know, you very rarely like I think clothes are maybe slightly different, but if you take clothes as an example, like you have lots of brands that are that people will buy and wear, but if you put it in the wash and it damages, like the likelihood of you buying that brand again is it reduces. It doesn't completely. You know, you get two or three chances with a brand, in my opinion. So like if you buy two or three pieces of garments and they all break, the likelihood of me going back to that brand is pretty minimal. And it's the same sort of thing. Like you get two or three chances with customers, and you get two or three chances to show them what's different about you. So that's important, just to kind of again just kind of showcase it in the simplest format, and then let the customer decide what they're buying. So yeah, script has always been a funny one, and also I'm really like poorly articulate, and I can't write to save myself. So we've never really been like very big wordsmiths. So I
Well,
think that's like
it all works beautifully. You and your family have recently acquired a shop in Crouch End in London.
yes.
This feels like quite a big moment for Mellis. Obviously, you've got probably customers down there and restaurants. Why London and why now?
Um, London again, like that's gone up on the website very understated.
Uh huh.
don't even know if we'll kind of announce that, quite honestly. We will eventually, but many reasons. London seems ridiculous considering where we are, right? Like it's the opposite end of the country. You'd think that maybe opening something closer to home would be better, but we like you said, we've got a lot of customers online that kind of buy there. We work with a decent amount of trade customers down there. But yeah, more importantly, my younger brother's been there for about 6 or 7 years. So he was a chef there and has been there in London for about, I want to say 6 or 7 years now. I could be wrong. But he's recently moved into the family business, and we're finding it really difficult to even just supply business to business without having a place to see it. You know, we send a lot of stuff via courier, and again, we didn't really have the hands-on element before we transferred to the customer. But because my brother is down there, I think that's probably why we've taken the leap of faith to go to London. I don't think we would have done it if we didn't have a family member there, because it would just be too difficult to manage. So, I mean, touch wood, I think Cameron's very keen at the moment to get it open. It's a big move in terms of moving into a city in the capital city, I think. But we've kind of approached it in a very similar way. Like, the shop is an old butcher shop. It's got a lot of character and restoration. It's utterly gorgeous inside. It has just got some I mean, if you look at the tiles and the old pubs within London, like, it's not too far off the same. So it's an amazing history. The area is incredibly rich in history. The shop has been a butcher's shop for 150 years, and it's been split across two families. It's had it for 75 years and 75 years. So it's changed hand twice, which is amazing. So we know that the area is really deep in history. And we're just basically looking to bring up a cheesemonger to that place that doesn't really have one. Yeah, it's a big move, but we like I said, I think with Cameron being down there, we're and for so long, like, it wasn't like a quick decision. Like, we've been thinking of it for 2-3 years. We've been looking at property for 2-3 years. We've been looking at areas for 2 or 3 years. London's such a massive city, like, and you can get it so exponentially wrong. Like, you can turn a corner and be in a really bad place. So yeah, we didn't rush it. Like, it wasn't like a kind of rushed decision. And we're still going to bring the same ethos. And quite honestly, like, we have so many different products that they do down in London, like a heavy influence on Celtic products we're going to put down there. So it allows the Scottish cheesemakers to even have a place to be sold, which I think doesn't happen too much down there.
Well, that's amazing also to look at it that way, because it's a huge marketing ploy in some ways. And London, I think they're going to be all over it. I mean, London's funny because it's like you say, there's the high end stuff,
Yeah,
and then it's like the complete other end as well.
yeah,
But I think, given all your customers down there as well,
yeah,
and the restaurant industry,
yeah.
I mean, twinned
Yeah.
with a beautiful property. I mean,
Hopefully, yeah. Touch wood. I think we're just going to do the same thing that we do here, and like, hopefully it works. And I think a big part of it is it's the people behind it. Like, if they know the person behind the counter is a family member, it makes a huge difference. And like, even if they know that they're involved, they're in some way, like if they're delivering the product to the restaurant or they're seeing them on a daily basis, like, the emphasis of like still having part of that kind of character of a Mellis is still there. And economically, it's really good for us as well. Like, we bring a lot of stuff in from Europe as well that comes up to Scotland, that was coming up to Scotland and then getting sent back down. So economically, being able to bring it into the London kind of branch as well keeps the mileage down a little bit, and eventually, like, that will become the place that we take all of our goods in. But it's trying to basically, it also allows us to connect a lot with the cheesemakers around London. Like, we buy a lot of English cheese up to Scotland, but we could do more with artisan cheesemakers that we don't work with. So being in London, it can be sent to the shop a lot easier, and we can actually like work with artisans that we've not seen or like touched or heard of before. So I think that's quite exciting to be able to go, okay, well now we can take some cheeses from Suffolk that we maybe didn't know or were too afraid to before, and still display that in the shop. So I think it'll be an element of Celtic products there for sure. There has to be like a really strong influence from the Scottish and Irish front. But we're really excited to kind of work with other local producers that are within that area and that wouldn't sell up here. For example, like Somerset cheddar used to sell hugely back in the 90s for Dad. Keen's cheddar was the biggest one. But since the kind of rejuvenation of Scottish cheesemakers, like we have a lot of cheddar style cheeses that sell amazingly in the shop, and they're Scottish now. And unfortunately, that kind of puts the Somerset cheddars a bit on the back foot, and then you can't have too many cheddars because they'll start moulding up. So this actually then gives us a stream or an opportunity to basically start selling some more Somerset cheddars and not just support kind of like the Scottish community, but start trying to support some of the kind of the overall kind of like English and British community
No,
as well.
absolutely, and it must actually be quite a hard balance in each shop to realise what's the best ones for the customers. Because, I mean, for example, I tried to get, I think for Christmas, was it the truffle one that you've got in? It's beautiful. I bought it last year as well, and I turned round and my brother had just about demolished the whole lot, and it was beautiful. But that had sold out really quickly before Christmas.
It's every shop has got different sellers. Christmas is you get your top tens, which is you're always going to sell, but the top tens change. Like Morningsiders absolutely love Gorgonzola, like that's number one for them. But it's like kind of down in eighth or ninth place in Stockbridge because Blossom's one of the best sellers there. And then you move to Victoria Street, and the top 10 is basically all Scottish, just due to the area. Glasgow really love English and like Somerset cheddars and that style. And then St Andrews is quite heavily local. Like they'll buy a lot of St Andrews cheddar, a lot of Anster, kind of a lot of oat cakes and stuff. So it's really interesting to see what people buy. That's actually when you see it kind of listed out on a piece of paper in front of you, because we do that every quarter, like it's amazing to see the difference in what the customer base does. So retail's a really tough game to crack. Like
Oh yeah.
it's not just putting a product in and trying to like hopefully it works, like especially when you're working with cheese, like because it will go off. So you've got to be really cautious about what you put in, which is why like it's so important to kind of listen to the customers in the area. Yeah, like all the shops have their own local eggs and their own local bread. Like they'll have elements of external suppliers that they work with that are specific to the shop. Doesn't come through the warehouse and then sent to them. So that keeps the local community quite like tight.
Yeah, absolutely. Out with the stores, where do you want to see Mellis going in, say, like the next decade? Is it expanding the cheese lounge, your wine restaurant? Like, where do you see the growth happening, or just maybe keeping it all as it is and like
Um,
continuing?
I mean, we've been working really a lot with other countries recently, just with exporting. That's a really big area for growth that we're focusing on. We are probably going to be focusing quite a lot on the retail over the next kind of 10 years and creating hubs for that and trying to roll that out, I would say. Really, I think we're enjoying the restoration project of London, and bearing in mind like this is the first proper shop that we've opened as a family, like
That must
collectively.
be quite a different change, actually.
I think so. I mean, you probably have to have an interview with Dad to get the real answer, but him and Mum have opened up they flew up, 5 shops within 10 years. So
I mean, that's incredible in itself, right?
it's an incredible achievement, and it's really difficult to do. And I think, yeah, you've got lots of different personalities now involved with it, but it is the first one we've done collectively. So it is a big turning point. It's great to see like Cameron's opinions coming in, my opinions coming in, Dad's opinions coming in, Mum's opinions coming in. So that's important. I think we've settled quite nicely now. But yeah, I think like opening a few more would be a great experience. And our private label's doing really well as well. So we do a lot of work with other customers on Mellis private label. So I think the brand in general, like, will continue to grow with more retail stores, but also private label products, and hopefully that we can. A lot of the private label that we do like the biscuits that we do. They're our recipe, and we work with the baker on it, and we bring in the ingredients that go into the biscuits, and then they get made, and we kind of rebrand it. It's not so much the case of going, here's a nice product, and can you label this up for us? Like,
Yeah, I mean, something's really going into it. It's not just
no, exactly. And there are products that we do that with, but I think it's also looking at it's looking at the quality of the product and like our private label and what people want. We work with loads of small businesses that want our brand now, and I think that's a big step. I don't think back when Dad opened up that he would have expected to have hand-cut cheese in margiottas alongside the chutney and alongside, so I think the brand has changed quite a lot, and I think with the new branding, it's quite an exciting time to kind of showcase what we're about. So yeah, that's a huge project for us at the moment, and probably will be for the next kind of 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the branding itself has taken 3 so far, coming on 3, and we're not even halfway through. So
no. I mean, it's incredible to see the progress since your dad first started. Because, I mean, your mum and dad must be actually really proud that everyone's come together now, right?
yeah, proud and relieved, probably. I think. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's always that. I suppose that worry. I suppose I'll have that worry in maybe 20 years' time when my kids are this age, and of what will they want to do. But I mean, they never.
Hopefully, Rory. Cheese.
Hopefully. I mean, they never forced in. So I think they're probably proud in the sense that it's not been. Cameron was a chef for kind of 8 years, and that was never like it was never like, well, okay, you do that for 7-8 years, but then you got to come and work for us. It was,
Sure.
and it was the same thing with me. Like, I'm not. I wanted to be a professional cyclist when I was younger, so a bit of a kind of right hand turn. But I think having a family in the business is really important. Like, especially for me and my brother to be able to work together now, which is great. He's of the age now where we're quite close. So it's an important step. It is quite a big change, but I think we all feel that. I think the company feels that. I think definitely the team that I work with see that, and it is an exciting time. Really, it's quite. I'm looking forward to the next 15-20 years now. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is an exciting time for you all. How do you feel in terms of when you've got so many layers to Mellis now, and so many products and so many ideas, just in terms of the business head and how much is on one's shoulders? How do you balance that out in terms of between, like, say, London's exciting, but also there's also these risks?
yeah, I suppose just the delegation. I think I work with a really strong team here, a lot of support, and a lot of support. I think it's nice to be able to lean on people. I don't think it's a bad thing to lean on people. So there's that stress, but I think that, like, from a business point of view, like, if you don't, like, if you stand still, I think within our industry, like, you'll die. So I think I'm never really going to get to that point, I don't think, where I'm sitting at a desk and being like, cool. I'm like,
I'm sorted.
I don't need to do anything today. Like, I don't think I'll ever get to that point. So I think there's always like stress. There's always things breaking. There's always, you know, this, that, and the other, and there's always things that kind of outweigh the good. So you just got to be quite organised, and then rely on your team members quite a lot, and um, and kind of just take every day as it comes. We do have obviously a plan, so it is important to kind of not get too stuck in on the day's going rubbish, or this week's gone bad, or this month's gone bad, and trying to kind of focus a little bit on, okay, but what are we working on? What's our plan for the next 6 months? You know,
Yeah.
that keeps you going quite a lot. Because if you work on a day-to-day basis, like here, then you the days just fly by and you don't feel you got anything done. So
No,
reflections massively as well. So like, and you don't get that until you kind of speak with yourself, like speak with people who are not in the business. Maybe it doesn't get done enough. Like, I think every business owner will probably say the same, that they'll think that they've done absolutely nothing, and then they'll speak to their pal, or they'll be interviewed and be like, oh, actually, we've done a huge amount in the past 3 years.
you know, you're so right, because there's been times over the last decade that I'm thinking, oh, I should have done this, done that, and then you speak to somebody out with it, and you're like, oh, it's like highlighting what you maybe just sort of let fly by, and actually
Yeah,
you realize, actually, because I mean, it's a bit like what you said earlier about Kenny doing the branding. I don't think a lot of people realize, creatively and business wise, how long things take to do well.
yeah. I mean, it's a huge investment. It takes so much time. Like everything takes like 3-4 times as long as you think it's going to take. But in the case of branding, like it's monumental. Like it's and it has to be consistent. Like, you can't mess up. Like, if you release a product, it has to be exactly the same as the previous one, and it's a lot of stress, like to get right, and it's a lot of time. So you've got to be pretty concentrated for the if you're going to change your brand. Like, once you've done it, you need to finish it. You can't leave it half this and half the other bit. So yeah, no, you're right. You must have interviewed quite a few people that are along that same lines, that probably thought this is going to take me 6 months, and it not be really.
And it's so funny, because actually, I also find, also speaking to people that are not in your industry, you can learn from loads to put
Oh yeah,
into what you're doing. Like, I find that a really interesting one.
just by talking to yeah, different people, how they brand and what they do and
Yeah,
how long.
or even just like a different industry, like, cheese, or architecture. Like, hearing other business people talk about things
Yeah,
that you would not have thought in a way, because you're so in your sort of,
in your lane. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it is cool, isn't it? And I recently just came back from seeing my pal in Dublin. He works for his family business. His family business is tow trucks, so he does roadside recovery. And his parents had a huge business, and they've kind of stripped back a little bit in recent years. But I find it so interesting to be like, so the phone would ring constantly, maybe 3-4 times an hour, maybe more, 3-4 times every kind of 10 minutes, being like a broken down, and like seeing how they then work with that and what they do and how they process and how they then call, and who's contracted to who. You don't even think about it. You're like, you call up to AA and you go, I've broken down the side of the road. And you don't know that, like, they're subcontracting, and this family basically is then getting calls out at 24/7. They need to then go and do that. And you learn so much from it, and you're like, I would never have thought that that's
No,
how it worked.
I know, and it's also the flat. Like, when you're in a business like that, the operations side must just be
Oh,
headache worth. Like, it's just,
it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Constantly on the clock. And it's similar to every business. Like, you'll ask a closed person, it'll be the same. But they'll be facing the same issues as what we're facing. It'll be like supply, and then it'll be super busy at Christmas, and everyone will kind of have that, like, oh God, now I've got to go from here to here at Christmas. And like, within the retail sector, everyone will be kind of they'll have the same problems, the same troubles, and the same successes. So that's quite nice. You can kind of like transfer a lot of your, lows and highs to that. Like one of my good friends is a butcher, and at Christmas, like if we're in the pub a couple of nights a week because he lives beside, like around the corner, and he's got the same problems, like same long hour shifts, the same issues with supply, the same kind of like he's got all this kind of pre-orders to do. It's really refreshing as well to speak with people, maybe not within cheese, but like within retail, like
Yeah, exactly.
and kind of confining them a little bit and go, well, what are you doing different, or how have you done this Christmas, and
Yeah.
like that's important. So when you're looking at like how to deal with it, like when I mean leaning on people, I do mean that like sharing is quite important as well.
Of course, it's like idea generation. It's like you never know when you want to sort of inject a new level of innovation into your business model. You know, it's
Yeah, and it will continually change in the next 10 years, like with AI coming in and technology just like advancing, like you wouldn't believe. I think, yeah, it's you got to take like it will change industries quite a lot, but I
oh
think we're just
massively,
yeah.
massively. I mean, how are you finding the technology changes in terms of trying to either keep up with it or just like take what you want?
Yeah, I think we take what we want from it. I think like we don't. It's because our business is so personal. Like having a sales rep go to a chef and try and sell, like that won't be replaced with an AI like introduction email. Like sales. You can, it might, but for me, you still need to be able to sell that, and someone needs to be able to shake your hand, and someone needs to be able to
It's
take the
personal,
product with you.
yeah.
Yeah. So we take stuff, and I'm not averse to kind of, I think I'm in the generation of growing up with technology, so I'm not scared to pull things from it if it makes life easier for people.
Sure.
But it won't, it can't like, replace, it can't replace selling cheese. So yeah, well, I mean, I hope not. I hope not. I don't think anytime
No, I
soon
don't
we'll have
think we'll see
AI
that.
bots in the shop because you need the personal element
Oh,
of our.
absolutely. And I think that's where AI is just now. Like, although it can do a lot of design and prompts, it's not getting to the unique quality of artistic expression to make
No,
it, so it's, I
you
think
need to understand, don't you? You need to understand the client, and you need to understand. Like Kenny understands and grew up with my dad cycling, like all those chats on the bike and probably plenty of beer in the pub. Like you kind of need to understand the person to make that thing work.
oh
You can't.
completely.
Um, so yeah, I suppose we're in a lucky position where AI doesn't completely affect. I know it's probably affecting a lot of industries, but
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will. I'll just finish up here, Rory, with have you got any dream collaborations or dreams for the future out with like the normal growth of things?
oof. Um, I think I mean we're always in collaborations on a general like product basis. Like we've got a lot of exciting collaborations coming up with local artists and stuff. Um, a dream collaboration would be oof, I don't know. Personally, I'd love to collaborate with the cycling team.
Why
I
not?
just, yeah, that old school. So I'd love to do a cycling team. I mean, that I think my dad sponsored one of his friends opened up a cycling thing, kind of in the kind of 2000s, and he put his logo on the shirt. I think it's so cool.
It
Uh,
is, isn't it?
clothing, yeah. I mean, that's a general, just like personal, like a personal thing. It would be amazing to do for me, but obviously, like it's a long shot. But yeah, I suppose collaboration wise, like we've got to stick within our industry quite heavily. So cheese makers, like I think is still a big one for us. We'd love to still keep collaborating on new cheeses and think about well if we can get specific cheeses made for us, then that would be amazing collaboration. We're working like on that with a company at the moment and giving feedback in terms of what the cheese tastes like, and we put our own label on it. So that's exciting in terms of collaborations. I don't think we'll ever. I don't think you'll see us sponsoring like F1 anytime soon, or Paris Fashion Week or whatever. But I think the brand's got to stay in its lane. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
within reason. And when you're collaborating with something, you've got to make sure that it has almost the exact same values as what you're going for. Like you can't collaborate with a huge brand that doesn't support the farmhouse and small scale industry, because it's stupid. So maybe something within that industry would be a really good fun to do. Maybe some alcohol, maybe, or something.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks for your time today, Rory. Anything
That's all
you'd
right.
like to promote, please do so.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
But they can find us in Edinburgh, 3 shops in Edinburgh, Stockbridge, Morningside and Victoria Street, and then Glasgow and St Andrews. And then for us, for those further afield, as Sally said, like you can buy online, and hopefully, in the next 3-4 months, you'll be able to purchase in London if there's any Scots or
I'm
any
so
Mellis
excited
fans
to
around.
see it. I'm excited to see that interior.
Yeah, we'll get. I'll make sure and get as many. We've got a lot of documented photos that we've been taking, so hopefully we can do that. We do have a collaboration coming up with Aubin, the clothing retailer.
Amazing.
It was ex Jack Wills, and now opened up a clothing retailer just on George Street, and they produce really good quality wool products. And they're quite keen to do some collaborations in the London shop, so that might be something you'll
That's
see
great.
in
That's
the next
great.
3 months.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Rory. I really appreciate it.
That's all right, and thanks for getting in touch. It's been nice to kind of get out of the normal day to day. So it's been nice to talk. So I appreciate it. Thank you for considering us.